As a homeowner, I'm always working on something. As a builder, I get to see what works and what doesn't.
They're going to have something that no one else has.
By the time you get to the end of the floor, you'll be a pro at it and it'll be over. After weeks of weighing the options, our homeowners will be enjoying breakfast atop a gorgeous new floor. I think you'll find their decision to be anything but ordinary. Installing it is a fairly simple process, but there are several key details you must get right, or there will be trouble. Well, I'm super excited. We're about to finish this floor project. It's been a lot of backbreaking work, lots of hours, removing all the tile from the floor, 350 square feet of tile, concrete backer board. We've had to take 1.5 inches at a time all the residue left off the OSB subfloor. We've had to glue down the 1/4 inch hard plywood to make sure we have a fresh playing field. We've had to stabilize the floor with C-channel per engineer's specifications, all to get to this point to install our new floor. We met with Scott Bradley at Carpet One to talk about all the different options available to get back on this floor. Some options that were available were a vinyl product. We also had a tile that was more suitable for unstable subfloors. And then there were some green products available, and that's where Scott helped us out and guided us into the right selection.
Really listening to the customer, Cork answered the most questions. They want something comfortable to stand on. They want something easy to maintain. They want something that was warm underfoot. They want something that was environmentally responsible, and Cork is a true green product. It's naturally antimicrobial, and it's built for the long run.
Well, after all this hard work we put into this floor, one of the things they were considering was the tile, and you talked to us a little bit about this tile that goes on subfloors that may be questionable or have some movement. Although we've stabilized it and they have that option available, it just didn't seem to be the right choice, so they went with this more exotic look. There's the typical Cork flooring, which almost looks like a bulletin board, which was not attractive to the homeowner at all. But then the Almada has a different option available.
They wanted a traditional look, and the Almada Cork comes in a 4-inch plank, which gives you the traditional hardwood look. And also color. That was probably one of the top issues for the customer, and the great thing about this is it has a custom stain option.
So you can mix and match colors along with different styles. I know in this particular flooring you have 4 different styles of looks that you can go with. They've chosen the Navoa in this style. But what impressed me the most about this product from US Floors was the different colors that were available. Cafe is the one they selected, which was just an awesome look for this area. Lighter countertops. It really had a good accent color to their cabinets, which was nice. And so this ended up being a custom color with the particular style.
They're going to have something that no one else has. So they really personalized their floor.
Why is Cork flooring such a great product for any floor install?
Yeah, the cork oak bark that this is made out of is naturally an insect repellent. So termites are not going to burrow into your floor.
It's also renewable. I know you talked a little bit about the cork tree, how they get the bark off of it and then it grows back. There's a numbering system.
Well, what they do is they peel the bark off of the tree, and the bark grows back in 9 years, and they number the tree so that they can keep track of the number of years before they harvest the next round of cork off of that tree.
And that's why it's a green product, because it grows a lot faster than a regular tree. Might have to wait 30 to 50 years to get another tree to produce enough hardwood flooring to get it down in this particular application.
Not one tree was harmed in the making of this floor.
So it's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. Well, I appreciate you coming out. The next thing we need to do is make sure that this floor is ready for an install.
Sounds good, Cole.
We're continuing the air sealing here in the basement of the homeowner's house. As you can see, Justin is sealing up the outlet, a major infiltration point for air coming in the house. And every time you do air sealing upstairs, that reduces the air leaving the house. But keep in mind that there's also air coming into the house from these lower pressure areas like your basement. So if you can seal up both of those, you've definitely increased your chance of reducing the overall air changes in the house. Now when you seal up a box, you've got to make sure to hit all 4 of those wire inlet points in the back of that box. Sometimes there's more than that if it's a metal box. And always be sure to turn off the power at your breaker panel before starting any project that includes light wiring and light electrical work.
For more information, visit our website at goenergylink.com.
Being here makes me smile a lot.
It's one place I don't have to worry about fitting in.
I learned how and why to make a difference.
Forum Christian Church, connecting, growing, living.
Wouldn't it be great if everything were free? You really can have free solar energy. With today's utility rebates and federal tax credits, solar energy can provide immediate cost savings on your utility bill and free electricity often in just a few years. So while you have to keep paying for everything else, find out how you can get free energy from the sun today. Missouri Solar Applications, a shining solution.
Closed captioning brought to you by
on Lamone Industrial Boulevard.
The most important thing you should do before you start any project in your home is read the instructions. Sometimes that will save you the biggest headaches and save you the most costly mistakes. After reading these installation instructions, there's a couple things I discovered. One, you want to make sure your floor is sitting in your home for 72 hours or more. They call that an acclimation period. There's certain temperature and humidity within your home that this floor has to be accustomed to before you ever think about installing it. The other thing we discovered was you had to take a moisture reading of the floor and the subfloor before you install it, and you want to document that. Now, there's a specialized tool that does a moisture reading, and Scott brought that over to help us out. When you're doing this project yourself, it's very important that you talk to the salesperson at your flooring company to make sure that they can help you with that. In this case, Scott does this for all his customers. You go into the store, you purchase the floor, he'll come out and take the before and after moisture readings to make sure your floor is installed the right way. Scott, you've taken some readings in the home. What did you discover?
Well, first of all, I just used this protimeter here, and I checked the subfloor staying away from the seams, and our moisture content in the plywood is between 9 and 10%. And then we just want to check our floor product that we're going to install, and that is at 8%, and you want to be between 2 and 4%. You don't want to have too much difference between the subfloor and the product you're putting on the subfloor. Otherwise, they'll contract and expand at different rates.
Which is not a good thing.
No, you could get buckling or other problems.
Now, why is it so important to take a moisture reading? And also, you mentioned to me it's important to document it. Why?
Well, if it's a good idea to know what you're going over before you put a floor down, because if you cover up a subfloor that's too wet, that could create some mold problems in the subfloor because you're basically encapsulating that floor. And to protect your warranties, you know, if the product is not installed properly, there's no warranty, and that goes for any product.
If we don't start this floor out square, by the time we get to the cabinets or any wall that is ended, this floor could have an angle and it'll look hideous on that side. So the first thing I do, a real simple process, it's called 3, 4, 5. I'm going to measure 3 feet off of the wall. I'm going to make a mark. I'm going to measure 4 foot off of this piece, make a mark, and then I'm going to measure 5. and this room is square within 1/16 of an inch. The beautiful thing about that is by the time we get to the far wall, it's going to be perfect. Nobody's going to notice 1/16 of an inch up against the trim. So we're good to start. This is nice and square. On plank flooring, the most important thing according to the instructions are you have to start it off by trimming the ton. This is the ton portion of the plank. You want to shave that off. And this is pretty easy on a Cork floor system. Other flooring products may require you to use a table saw. You score the piece, and usually the second time through, we'll cut this piece completely off. Just like so. Next part of the installation instruction says we have to have a 3/8 inch expansion joint everywhere around this floor. This is a floating floor, so there's movement that you won't see with your naked eye, but it expands and contracts as humidity rises in the house, as temperatures rise and fall. So we want to make sure that we're not going to put this floor in a bind anywhere. So what we have to do is figure out how much we have to leave from our starting point to where the floor starts. That's where our transition piece comes in. This is what is called a carpet reducer, and what that does is reduce from a hard surface to another surface. It's going to end up being installed just like this up against our balusters and our banister. So what I want to do is measure this width right here, and then I have to leave 3/8 inch of a gap between this hard surface and where my new floor is going to start. So I'm going to measure 3/8 of an inch because this has a nice groove cut in it. And then I'm going to measure from the edge to my 3/8 inch marking. That's 1 1/8 inches. So I know I need to have a spacer from the banister to the transition piece 1 1/8 inches. So we're going to go out and cut several of those so that way I don't have to install this transition piece till the end.
This season of Building for Better Living brought to you in part by Mark Hall Cabinetry, where everything you imagine materializes. Steve's Pest Control. Now you have a friend in the pest control business. Slumberland Furniture. The way you live, the way you save.
If you came to Slumberland and said, I want this sofa, I want 1,000 of them, we'd give you one heck of a discount. That's called buying power. And with over 120 stores, Slumberland has the power to save you big money. That's why you can design rooms that look like this, or this, or this, at an amazing price. Slumberland's buying power turns into your buying power, and you get so much more for so much less.
Imagine style so eloquent that functionality is secondary. Imagine expert guidance and a process that's all about you. Imagine exceptional quality at a price you can feel good about. Imagine immense satisfaction. Mark Hall Cabinetry, where everything you imagine materializes.
A termite eating through the wall of my home. An infestation of ants crawling on my kitchen counter. A brown recluse spider about to bite my son. Roaches crawling in my cabinets.
If you've got a bug problem, don't call a psychiatrist. Just call me at Steve's Pest Control.
Now you got a friend in the pest control business. Steve's Pest Control.
Closed captioning brought to you by
on Lamone Industrial Boulevard.
Well, the good news on this floor, it's a pretty easy install once you get everything started. The great news is we have a banister that gives us a guide that's nice and square to the rest of the house. The only problem we have is coming up against this carpet transition. We want to make sure that this is a nice seamless line all the way through. Also, as you can see, it has an angle here, which one, gives it a lot of character in this house, but two, it makes it a challenge for us when we're installing the floor because we have to make sure we know what that angle is. Good trick for that is to make sure you have a speed square. As best you can, you want to make sure that you get it up to your nice straight line, which I've already made some marks to make sure that my speed square is right on track with the carpet. I make a mark, straight line. This allows me to check out what this angle is. On your speed square, it has a nice pivot point. That's where you need to put your starting point, and then you turn until you get the angle. And this one, in this particular case, is a nice 45-degree angle, which most of the time you would think that's the way it is, but when your naked eye is working on this project, you wouldn't notice if it was a few degrees off. And a few degrees on this 4-inch plank can make all the difference in the world. As I stated before, I need 1 1/8" spacers to get me started on this floor. So what I'm going to do is make a mark on my floor. And this is a scrap piece of flooring that I'm not going to use anywhere else. I'm going to put it on my miter saw. I'm going to bring it down and make sure it lines up on my mark. And then I'm going to put a little cheater mark on my guide on the miter saw. That way I can cut several pieces and just make it really streamlined. Now you have perfectly 1 1/8" spacers and you didn't have to measure and cut several different times. Once we have all the spacers cut, now we want to lay those out so that way when we start our first row, we can push it up tight against the spacers and get onto the second and third row. Well, it's important that we also have a spacer on the 45-degree angle because you want to make sure when you put your transition piece down there, everything lines up nicely. So we'll space these out every 4 to 6 inches. We want to have a nice even pressure throughout the whole floor. And we'll leave these spacers in throughout the whole install. The reason you're going to do that is because when you get up next to a hard surface, you may have to do a little tapping in as you're pushing the piece in. If you tap the floor and move it, everything's going to be thrown way off. So we want to make sure these spacers stay until we're completely done. Get our first 45-degree angle piece set. Instructions state that you bring the next piece up at an angle and just push down. It's that simple. To make sure it's locked, I give it a little tap. Go to our next piece, do it the same way as the last. Hold it at an angle, lay it down. Nice little tap. And this is where your 3/8" inch spacers come in handy. What I've done is cut off an end of a board and just laid it flat up against the trim piece. I'll hold my tape measure to the trim piece up to my next piece, and we're right at 25 inches. We'll go out and cut that piece, start our second row. Now, the instructions say whatever you cut off your last piece of the first row, you can use that for the second row. The problem with that, they recommend no piece be smaller than 12 inches. Well, as I cut that off, I discovered that this piece is 11 inches. So this piece is no good to use for the rest of the floor. So what I'm going to do for my second row piece is get a 45-degree angle cut on it. Again, we just turn the miter saw, it's ready to cut. So now we have our end piece of the first row, starter piece for the second. Now we take the piece we just cut, put it at an angle, lay it down, little tap. Now we're going to take our second piece for our second row and get it started. We're going to borrow a spacer from that first row. Make sure our 45-degree angle stays appropriate. Push it up at an angle all the way to your next piece, and really you just tilt it down. and it locks in, and you can feel it as you're placing it in there. You feel it lock in. You can actually almost hear it click. Make sure our spacer stays in there appropriately. So as you're installing your floor, you want to make sure that you pull from several different boxes. That's the beautiful thing about this product. Each box will have a different style, different color, and you want to mix and match those appropriately. Otherwise, you'll have one of the same color all clumped together. Again, very easy install. You make sure that you put it at an angle. You want it tied up against your first row, and notice I push it very closely to this next piece. That way when I have it locked in and I bring this down, it's going to line up perfectly with this first piece of the second row. I can feel it clicking in there, I can feel it locking in there. Hear that click. And this second row is intact. You just want to give it a nice little tap and you're on to your next piece. And as with any project, as you're starting and it's a new type of floor to you, it's going to take some time to get used to it, get used to the pattern in which it does get installed. Everything's locked down. Also, if you need a little help, a lot of times depending on the floor that you've purchased, it'll come with a tapping block. This allows you to get it locked into place if you're having a little bit of trouble. I don't anticipate that I'll need that yet as I'm moving along here. And as you can see, I'm already kind of finding my groove on how to install this. And what'll happen is by the time you get to the end of the floor, you'll be a pro at it and it'll be over.
This season of Building for Better Living brought to you in part by Nancy Allison, Shelter Insurance. We're your shield, we're your shelter. Carpet One, beautiful made affordable.
I want to talk to you about my friends at Carpet One Floor and Home. Did you know they've been in business since 1968? Scott Bradley and his staff have been taking care of my flooring needs for years. Their showroom is the nicest between St. Louis and Kansas City, with over 2,000 square feet dedicated to tile alone. Plus, Carpet One has products that are covered by the beautiful guarantee. If you don't like your flooring for any reason, they'll replace it free. How's that for peace of mind? I'm Paul Pepper, and Carpet One Floor and Home is a friend of mine.
We're Shelter Insurance.
We know you don't stay in business for more than 60 years unless you treat customers right.
We think insurance is better when it relies as much on humanity as it does on technology.
And we know what the weather is like in your area because we live in your area.
Shelter Insurance. For your auto, home, and life. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
Get the insurance coverage you need at the right price. Call Nancy Allison today.
Scout is going through a stage. She loves to flush her toys down the toilet. So when the toilet backed up, I called my mom and said, "Help!" She said, "Call Mr. Reuter Plumbing." Mr. Reuter showed up on time. They were courteous and professional, nice and neat, and did a great job. I can see why people refer Mr. Reuter. Now it's my turn. Call Mr. Reuter.
Closed captioning brought to you by
on Lamone Industrial Boulevard.
This particular floor calls that you shouldn't have any smaller than a 12-inch piece. But your staggered joints should be more than 12 inches as well, so it makes it really difficult to get a healthy balance in there and not have your joints and your staggers all in the same spot. And the reason I'm not getting crazy with the tapping block is because when I push this down, this floor is raising up. So I just need a few more rows to keep it from trying to buckle on me. The whole time I'm inspecting the pieces as I put them in, make sure that there's no imperfections. The great thing about this floor is you could actually touch up any imperfections, small imperfections, with a Sharpie marker. That's a kind of a flooring trick, if you will. Well, the biggest problem that I have with this floor, if this was a rectangular room, I'd have no problem. Here's the last thing you want to do on any type of hardwood floor laminate installation. You don't want to have a stair step effect. You want those joints to be varying in lengths. Right now, I've already started this stair step. I'm okay with 2 or 3, but to keep going 4 is just going to make this floor look different. The beautiful thing behind this floor is the elegance, the exotic appeal of it. We want to keep that look going through. So what I'm going to do is start my next piece at 12 inches so I can get a longer stagger in here, and then my next piece will be even longer, so that way I'll break up that stagger joint. Now we're starting to get a nice good stagger. So this is a piece off of the starter row here. This can be used as an end piece. What I've done to make life easier for myself is I've turned the piece upside down and backwards. That way I can measure, get a mark of where to cut this piece off. I can also map out my HVAC vent. Got to make sure that I notch this out so everything will fit right on top of it and finish it out. I also get a measurement from the last row to the edge of the HVAC vent. It's like 1 1/4. Mark that on my piece. Use that as a guide, and that gives you a straight line. So now I know I have to cut out this section here. Turn. Pop and lock. Trim it off nicely. In your audit process, Scott, is this something that you do for every audit?
It is. Insulate that, add a timer to it.
Of course, everybody would like to do everything all at once, but in certain cases it has to be more realistic that all you can do is what you can do now based on your budget.